This is the HOVR Brothers. My name's Liam. This is my co-host Reece. Guys, you've got us interested in Horizon Aircraft, and we thought, do you know what? Let's bring on the man himself. We have Brandon Robinson here to answer our ever-growing questions, and we've asked the community to share the questions we have had around Horizon Aircraft. Brandon, I want to start by saying, how does a fighter pilot all of a sudden get into owning a eVTOL company?
That's a great question. First of all, love your channel. I am going to like and subscribe. I don't care what it costs. You guys are fantastic. So thanks for having me, Liam and Reece. It's an interesting story. So how I became a fighter pilot in the first place is another story, but I was working at a gas station, and the guy that owned the gas station had failed at a pilot training and went on to a successful naval career. And I didn't know what I was doing, and and I was getting to the near the end of my high school career. So long story short, he said, you should probably try to fly jets. I said, like the Top Gun sort of folks? And he's like, yeah, you can do that. It's pretty amazing. But he's like, yeah, you probably won't pass any of the tests. So chances are you're probably going to fly something else, or maybe, go on to a successful Army career we can march around. But lo and behold, I actually passed all the tests and, met a bunch of really cool folks. Ended up flying jets in the Air Force. Got a mechanical engineering degree, an advanced business degree. And then near the end of my career, it was either kind of go up into the political realms of the Air Force, or at a very unique opportunity. So a group of investors had approached my father, who ran an aerospace company. And they were very interested in these all-electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. They realized that we come from a very operational background. My father had been flying airplanes for 60 years. My first flight in an aircraft, I think I was 6 years old, or 6 months old. And I'd been flying since a very young age. And they wanted to see if we could put together a more operationally focused concept for the emerging advanced air mobility space, the air taxi space. They really wanted us to take a look at all electric architectures, and we did so. But when we layered on a lot of the operational aspects, we thought there was going to be some challenges there, and really an opportunity to, instead of compete directly with those folks, have a longer range, faster, more operationally robust and safe concept for the emerging advanced air mobility world. So we put together this concept for the group of investors. They were happy with that. And that is how the modern version of Horizon Aircraft was born.
Yeah. So
I think jumping into that then. So is that explaining why that you've went with a hybrid model rather than the electric vertical takeoff and landing?
Yeah, great question. So we thought hybrid power systems, so much like a Prius or a lot of modern vehicles are hybrid these days, had a lot of advantages in the aerospace world, especially advanced air mobility. So we love the fact that after takeoff, where we use the electric power to to lift the aircraft off the ground and move forward, the aircraft could recharge itself and be ready for landing phase, right? So you wouldn't approach the landing phase with 35 or 40% in decreasing energy levels. You'd be able to approach the landing phase at destination with almost full battery power. After it landed, the aircraft will be able to recharge itself. You don't have to find a generator station, or you have to land at a vertiport. So it's sort of independent of all of the charging infrastructure that may or may not be in place, at least in the short to medium term. And we liked a lot of the safety aspect of it. So still carrying a fuel source on board that's 30 to 40 times as energy dense as even the best batteries, even though we love, we love that all electric space. There's a lot of good work that's going to be done soon, but allows us to go a little further, maybe a lot further. So instead of going 50 to 100 miles, we're going 300 to 500 miles, and we're traveling at speeds that are a lot quicker and carrying, instead of thousands of pounds of batteries on board initially and hundreds of pounds of stuff, we're carrying hundreds of pounds of batteries on board and thousands of pounds of useful stuff over those distances. So, a lot of different operational advantages.
I guess then, due to the range, you'd be more likely to be going from city to city rather than intercity. And I guess with the main use cases, then, would that be for travel? Would that be for cargo? Would that be for military use? Where would you be seeing HOVR?
Yeah, so great question. We see ourselves again as very complementary, and there's going to be a lot of great work done in the all-electric space in the shorter ranges. We are between cities instead of between points within a city, if that makes sense. When you have a helicopter capability that is essentially twice as fast as a helicopter and much cheaper to operate on a per mile basis, a lot of interesting missions open up. So initially, emergency medical services. So imagine getting folks that are injured to the hospital in half the time, which would be amazing, or from that, twice the distance in that golden hour when it's really critical that they receive medical care. Time-sensitive drugs, so radioactive isotopes for cancer research between hospitals, organ transport between two hospitals or locations that require that, and then moving out to any sort of time-sensitive cargo that needs to get to a certain place quickly and very efficiently. So in Canada, and actually in the United States, there's a lot of very remote communities that don't have access anymore to any sort of regional airports that are close. And it's especially challenging in the Canadian North and writ large across the United States. There's lots of opportunities to connect these communities with a more efficient way to get them the stuff that they need critically to improve their quality of life.
I guess then jumping on to that, in terms of the fact that it's twice as fast as a helicopter, in terms of the military use, would that be beneficial because it can move twice as quick if there is any medical needs on the field or to transport anyone? That would
Absolutely.
be more useful than a helicopter. And I guess then in terms of like a price point, would it be cheaper to run than a helicopter, or would it be?
Yeah, so very good questions. I'll take the first question first. The best way to say this is when I was in the Air Force, one of my jobs at my tactical level was to plan and lead coalition NATO strike missions and personnel recovery missions and whatnot. So it'll be 60 to 80 to 100 aircraft airborne at a time in training. And we were often limited by the slowest aircraft in the fleet that we had airborne to do the personnel recovery, to get the casualty out of that certain area, or to do the resupply missions. Those were often the helicopters. And again, great capability, but if we had a machine like the X7 in the fleet, I would have employed that to great use and to help service people around the world. I think it's going to be a great capability. So that's the first piece. Again, if you have a helicopter that is almost twice as fast, can get in and out of the tight areas like a helicopter can, and is 75% cheaper to own and operate per unit mile, alongside the different safety aspects of it, is pretty compelling. And that does lead into the costing model. So on a per hour basis, which is how helicopters are typically used around the world and costed out, will be about 15 to 20% cheaper on a per hour basis. But during that hour, you can go 1.8 to 2 times further because it's just much faster and much more aerodynamically efficient. And those two pieces compound, again, to save you about 75% of the costs per unit mile. So if you have a helicopter fleet and your helicopters are primarily going from just point A to point B, delivering critical goods or helping people in remote communities, or helping militaries around the world, then this machine is very compelling. So on a per mile basis, again, saving 75% of the cost is pretty significant. And we think is, again, a tribute to the concept in terms of focusing on the end user and building something that the regional operators will want to use.
And I guess with helicopters as well, there's that. The problem is there's no redundancies if the main propeller fails at any point. Whereas with eVTOLs, there's built-in redundancies that one thing can turn off and we can still be going on the actual gas tank rather than the eVTOL side of it.
Yeah, and so you're hitting on a really important point, and that's safety. So if it's going to carry people and important stuff, it's going to save lives. We wanted a machine that was very safe and very operationally robust. So it's one of the reasons we decided to house the vertical lift fans within the wings, inducted fans. If something happens to one of those fans, it can't cascade and fail into the next fan and destroy the next fan, which destroys the next fan. It is a very self-contained, very safe sort of mechanism from a vertical lift perspective, which we love. We also love the fact that it flies around 98% of the time, just like a normal airplane. It has all of the bleed air systems on board, so warm air that comes from the engine in order to protect against icing that allows it to fly in bad weather. So this, again, this is a helicopter capability, except it can fly in bad weather, and it is built tough to be able to do so. And that's a pretty significant piece of the puzzle. A lot of helicopters only fly in very good weather. So we're pretty excited about that.
One thing I want to ask is, on our channel, the majority of the guys are long-term investors. And as a long-term investor, we like to look at the next 5-10 years. Where would you see the likes of Horizon in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh man, what a great question. In 5 to 10 years, we will be doing, our aircraft will be doing emergency medical services. Again, we'll be resupplying militaries all over the world and helping with the, service people do their jobs. We'll be redefining how things move around on a regional scale. We can talk about the 1970s paradigm where, you used to be able to go to a regional airport that was like 20 minutes away, and they would, scan you a little bit and throw your bags in the back, and then you'd be off to the races, right? And it was very low friction travel. I think there's the pendulum has swung very far, and now I have to travel 2 hours to this major hub when I stand in line and get strip searched and everything, and it's just terrible experience. And so I'd rather drive 20 hours than experience that for 2 hours. So there's a way to maybe potentially redefine regional air travel with some of these unique machines that don't require all of the infrastructure of a major 10,000-foot runway. They can get in and out of any sort of helipad size space. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
And then in terms of infrastructure, we have seen across the whole sector, there's people talking about vertiport and the likes of that. At Horizon, what is your sort of business? Are you planning to manufacture the aircraft and then operate it, or where are you going with this?
Yeah, so really great point. We're unique in this space insofar as, again, we're just building a machine that's laser focused on the end user. And we're not going to become a manufacturer and an operator at the same time. I've been in operations, in military operations, and then in a private company, when I retired for a brief period of time. Just operating these aircraft is a whole company in and of itself, right? That's why Airbus doesn't manufacture and then have its own airline. It's just a horrendous thing to try to get your mind around. So we're strictly focused on just building an amazing machine that we're going to sell for significant profit in the future. And we'll let lessors and experts around the world, regional operators, use this machine.
Yeah. And then I kind of want to cover, like, for any of the guys that have never heard about New Horizon, what do you believe the main advantage of investing early into the likes of New Horizon would be?
Well, I think there's been a lot of noise in the space, and I think there's been a lot of hype in the space. And I think that it is about time, and it's going to be time very soon, where the no BS, operationally focused, just really great designs start to shine through, right? The companies like ours, and there's others, that are less about the hype and the PR and more about just building an awesome machine using current tech that are going to help people and are underpinned by a very solid business case. Those machines will get bought and they will get used. And the company's valuations will reset to a place where it just is reflective of the technology that has been developed. And so I think there's a significant upside to our particular company. Of course, we can't guarantee anything, but we have some pretty significant tech. We're making great progress. We're on our milestones. We'll have a full-scale aircraft in the next 24 months. At that point, I mean, the nearest comp, we're 25, 30 times, less market cap than our nearest comp that's doing similar stuff. So lots of room for growth, we'll say.
And then I want to touch on, we're hearing a lot across the industry about simulators and flight simulators. How good are these simulators in relation to real world flight, shall I say? Are they accurate enough to get your pilots trained on flight time only through a simulator, or do you have to get the pilot out there on your aircraft?
Yeah, great. A really great question. So in the Air Force, for only 3 years, I wasn't flying airplanes. I was in their National Defense Headquarters, like in Washington in the Pentagon sort of thing, learning how to buy and procure equipment and banging my head off. I still got a dent from banging my head off the desk from time to time, trying to figure it all out. But for those 3 years, actually, one of the most interesting things was buying and integrating simulator systems into the modern fleet for the F-18s that we were flying. And so I did a lot of studying on how it all worked. And it starts with, ground-based training systems, so small computer devices that, you learn the basic systems and you work up through various sort of tiers. And at the highest tier, airline pilots currently go and they fly a simulator, and they can get qualified as a first officer flying in very sophisticated simulation devices right now. So this is happening right now. But that's for first officers. There'll always be a captain beside them in a two-pilot system that will have flown the aircraft. So for our system, to distill that all down, we'll have all of the very sophisticated simulator systems in place that will bring them up to the 90%, and then they'll come in-house. We'll teach them how to fly the airplane in the real world, give them 10 to 15 hours, whatever it is, for type for qualification on type. And then they'll be able to go into the wild and then start flying commercial for-profit operations. So that's how we envision it. Simulation is coming so far. It's amazing what's possible. We'll use all of the latest tech, but there's still a human element that we're going to apply.
And then another one I kind of want to touch on too, because I think the guys will eat me if I don't ask you this. How difficult is it to work trying to get the likes of a new aircraft certified within the FAA?
So the advantage with us is that we're under Transport Canada Civil Aviation. So north of the border, Transport Canada is a smaller, potentially more agile version of the FAA that has specific expertise in powered lift, so vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. On our board of directors is a gentleman by the name of John Maris. You can look this up on our website. He is a Canadian Aerospace Hall of Fame epic test pilot individual. Basically, cherry-picked all the best public sector certification folks, brought them into a private company called Certification Center Canada, and we're working with them to develop a very realistic, very streamlined and cost-efficient path to certifying our new aircraft. It doesn't hurt that we're just very honest folks when it comes to performance, and the certification folks appreciate the fact that we have done a deep dive into all of the safety factors and all the requirements and sort of have it all lined up to begin with. So it's not an easy process to go through, but we have a number of advantages, is what I'll say.
And then we're going to touch on as well. You say this is a hybrid aircraft. Would you ever see it going fully electric, or do you always want to remain as the hybrid?
That's a great question. So our company will always do what makes the most sense. Actually, we have envisioned the time when it will transition to a fully electric aircraft if batteries make a big breakthrough, or in a decade when the batteries cross a certain threshold. Where now operationally, how it's being used makes sense to go all electric. When you have a hybrid electric architecture, it is relatively straightforward to then do what's called a special type certificate and remove the internal combustion engine, just put more batteries in electric motor. That's a relatively simple thing to do. You have to consider a few things like cabin conditioning from an environmental control system and anti-ice and de-ice perspective. But for the most part, that's easy. If you start with an all-electric architecture and then have to go to hybrid electric, it is a lot more challenging. You've seen some of the major companies take a bit of a backpedal and are going hybrid electric. For numerous reasons, I think it makes a lot of sense for those companies, and we're proud to have kind of taken that step before them, if that makes sense. Yeah. And our aircraft is set up for that. But I guess to distill it all, yeah, we are very excited about that future when we can go that direction. But in the interim, we got a machine that's going to do some amazing work in the interim.
And then I want to jump in. So one of our members, his name is Gundog Direct, has a question. When do you believe you'll have a full-scale X7 built? And are you on schedule with the current build?
So we are already building. So great question. We are already building the full-scale aircraft right now. So if you walked into our hangar, you'd see full-scale propulsion units getting fired up and linear actuators working and getting tough tested. We're not a company that's going to design something in the computer for the next 2 years, and then we're more builders and than we are that. World-class folks on board, but just people that have been there and done that, and know how to build a toughened machine. So you walk in the hangar, you're going to see all that good stuff happening. So we are building it. We are on track. We just transitioned our half-scale aircraft to fully forward flight, and we will have a full-scale aircraft in the next 24 months that is ready to do testing, which is pretty exciting. Like I said, it's a great time to be part of it.
Yeah, and then we have a second question by Gundog Direct. When you compare to some of your big competitors' aircrafts to your X7, where do you see the main advantages of your aircraft compared to theirs?
Other than the speed, the safety, the payload, the operational flexibility, and the ability to operate from pretty much anywhere and not require charging infrastructure, not too much. No, I'm just... Yeah, again, we see us very much as complementary to those shorter range services. There's not a lot of folks that are competing at our ranges and distances and speeds and payloads. Quite frankly, they've chosen a different business model that will make them money, again, at the shorter, higher frequency sort of route sizing, and we'll do the rest.
Thank you so much for being so honest. So we have another one. Hydrax5320 really wants to get me in trouble here, but I'm going to ask it anyway because you know what we're like in Hustle Brothels. How much more funding do you need to get certification, and where do you intend on getting this funding?
Yeah, so that's one of the great things about being a public company. Again, there's a number of different efficiencies that we've worked. We're kind of a VTOL 2.0 company. So one of the most frustrating things I hear is that, yeah, you need $1 billion to certify an aircraft because JOBY has spent $1 billion. And well, no, those companies built themselves up very quickly. They have a large headcount. And a lot of the money that they're spending is not directly on certification activities. And they vertically integrate a lot. That's expensive. And they're also setting up not only the production of the aircraft at very high level, very high rates, which is very expensive, but they're also setting up the operation of said aircraft, like we alluded to before. So not only are they going to be producers, they're going to be operators. So if you dig through all the financials and extract what it costs, it's not nearly as much as folks think. Although I don't want to downplay it. It's going to be a significant effort. It's going to cost a lot of capital for us. We have a number of different sources. Okay, so we have recently instituted what's called an ATM, so shelf, where we can very responsibly sell stock to generate some cash, which is nice. We're not doing that very actively right now, and we don't intend to. Our overarching umbrella sort of guiding light, if you will, is being respectful to the shareholders, right? So fortunately, we also have the second pillar is a major strategic backer that is quite interested in helping us and interested in the fact that this machine is going to work, and they see the large scale business case for it. And they continue to support us. So we have some very deep support there. And there's also a lot of non-dilutive financing available north of the border as well. And writ large in North America, quite frankly, whereby, we have access for sustainable aviation technology. There's a thing you can look up called INSAT, INSAT, that is essentially a $350 million pool in Canada for companies like ours that are into sustainable aviation technologies. No guarantees, but we have applied for INSAT grants and numerous other grants. And so that's a good source of non-dilutive capital that the company can bring to bear going forward to help us out.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I actually can't believe you made me ask that, Hydrax.
Hydrax, love this guy already. Or girl.
Then we have K. Dean says, when will your first order be received?
Yeah, so we've already had a lot of outreach for pre-orders of our aircraft. I was telling you both, I mean, we could have sold hundreds, if not thousands of these aircraft, pre-sold them already. But we didn't want to play the game that all the other companies was playing. Was, you know, a lot of non-binding LOIs. There was no real teeth. There's no non-refundable down payments. So fundamentally, we're looking for partners and smart operators. We've already committed to a very small group of select individual companies. So Jet Set Go is one of them. There's a Chilean operator is another one. And there's a number of different folks that are kind of in the short strokes, people that we respect that have actual operations that are willing to put skin in the game. We're willing to talk to those folks. We're less willing to, you know, talk to folks that the money's going to come from the marketing department or whatever. You know, they just want a fancy PR. So not to disparage the other companies, they're doing what they're doing. We just want to take a little more authentic approach, and when we get an order, we want it to be a real thing.
Thank you for that. So Kadeen also said, will the X7 be all-weather certified? And do you know, are there any other eVTOLs out there that are all-weather certified already?
I love this question. And the concept was designed from the beginning to be IFR. So let's break down all-weather. Means essentially you can fly in good weather, cool. But flying in clouds under instrument flight rule conditions, IFR conditions, is how the majority of all commercial, very safe operations occur. It's using the commercial structure, highway in the sky that already exists, current air traffic control systems. Operators that operate under an air operating certificate know how to operate under IFR conditions and in bad weather. And all of those things will be capable. Well, we're aiming for that to be capable in our aircraft. So it will be able to fly in clouds under IFR conditions. There's some nuance there that I can talk about. We are targeting for flight into known icing, which almost no helicopter in the world is certified for. And I don't think any open rotor VTOL will be certified for. It's too crazy. Ice accumulates on the rotors and they can shed the ice onto the adjacent rotor. It really is bad news. But ours, you know, our aircraft is just a normal aircraft for 98% of the time. When it's flying in icing conditions, it will be configured in its normal airplane configuration, in a very safe configuration that has all the anti-ice and de-ice systems activated. And that's known technology. We don't have to reinvent anything for that. And so great question. We are targeting definitely IFR operations, so in clouds, and we're targeting flight into known icing conditions, which will be one of the only VTOLs, if not the only VTOL in the world that is capable of that, other than, again, a couple of some military grade helicopters, if that makes sense. And they don't do it very often because it's not good.
Just jumping in there, for the open rotor eVTOLs, would they struggle to go through clouds, or would they not get to the altitude because they're not going into city? They're going in the city rather than city to city.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. Micro weather is a thing that's hard to predict. So the sort of the smaller range weather systems that can develop in and around high-rise buildings and fog and whatnot, if the visibility goes down, those shorter range operations. So if clouds roll in, or the cloud ceiling drops so that you can't really get too high before you get into clouds, if those things start to impinge, those operations will most likely get shut down very, very quickly. And that is one of the reasons why it's challenging for helicopter operators these days. I know some amazing folks who fly some amazing helicopters that are built from some amazing companies like Robinson Helicopter. Love those folks. The challenge is on the operational side when you have people arriving and they need to get to a place or go do a sightseeing trip that they've planned and they got their family there, and the weather goes below a certain level. And you have to tell these poor folks that you can't go flying. It's not safe. And they don't understand. Like, I can see the top of the building. It's fine. And that's how you get helicopter operators having a lot of pressure to fly lower than they're supposed to. And it takes a lot of discipline to insulate yourself from that pressure. And that's where you have some of those accidents happen. It's not the helicopters themselves. It's, people pushing, the operational risk levels higher than they should. With a machine like ours, you won't have to do that. It's going to be built for that from the beginning, which I'm pretty, like I said, we tell our folks in the company every day, if you're not willing to put your family, your kids in the back of the airplane and fly it under these conditions, then we have to go back to the drawing board because we haven't figured it out yet. So, and each of them, you know, the way it's coming together, I'd be happy to put my kids in the back of this thing.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And then we have K Dean says, have we any upcoming events that investors can look forward to?
So we are going to be at the Paris Air Show. So if anyone wants to come say hi, we'll.
We actually could, to be fair.
Oh, there you go. And say hi. And we have a number of different events. So all you have to do is take a look. We'll press release. We may or may not go to the Dubai Air Show in late October, I think, or early November. And we have a few other things planned along the route there. So yeah, watch our YouTube channels and watch for our press releases. We try to keep everyone really well informed.
No, thank you for that. And then we have Terry. Terry has asked a very serious question here. He loves your hat, the HOVR hat, and he says the one question he wants to ask is, when will your merch be available? Because he wants to start repping it.
Well, I was telling you folks, I mean, we get a huge amount of questions surrounding this. So Terry, great question. We're working on it right now, actually. I didn't think that this was going to be a thing initially, but yeah, so there should be merch available sooner rather than later. We're looking into it. So shirts and hats and maybe some other stuff, which is a surprising request, but great question, Terry.
Now, Reece, is there anything else you want to focus on with Brandon?
No, I just wanted to say a big thank you for Brandon for coming on. You've actually shed some light on questions we've had for the past year, and we've had quite a few theories on different items, and I think you've cleared a lot of them up today. So yeah, big thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
thanks so much, Liam. Thanks, Reece. Really appreciate it. Yeah,
I think it's been very interesting. We've not only talked to someone in the industry, but he's also a fighter pilot. And guys, what I really want to say is, look, you focused on Horizon Aircraft. We were able to get in contact with Brandon. You see, he's a complete open book. If you have any questions about Horizon, I'm sure Brandon's more than willing to answer your questions. And if not, we can forward on for Brandon to have a look at. But Brandon, I want to finish off with, at Horizon Aircraft, what is one thing you want to say to new investors?
Well, I would say pay attention to the technology and to the folks like us that are building real capabilities with current technologies from a space that understands what we need to do. We're not a university think tank group of folks. We're not a Silicon Valley startup. We're a group of hardened aerospace professionals that have years of operational experience, and we're building an awesome machine that will work. And when the world starts to realize that, again, from an investment perspective, there's lots of room for growth, is all I'll say.
Brandon, I want to thank you so much for your time, and I can promise you we will be covering Horizon Aircraft on the weekly. You've sold me on the company.
100%. Love you guys. Honestly, thank you so much. Love the channel. I am honestly going to like and subscribe, and it is just, you got nothing but blue skies ahead of you folks. It's been fantastic. Thank you.